Right,
That's the first step.
Right. How much of your career in the army has been devoted to active service? Right, well, if I count it up, I've done 2 6-month tours in Bosnia, 2 6-month tours in Afghanistan, 3 4-month tours in Iraq, a 6-month tour in Belfast, and the odd 3 weeks, 6 weeks?
Aye. The
PRB. PRB.
Aye, just 6 weeks.
So what's that, 6 years?
You must have both medals then.
Yep.
Aye.
So 6 years out of 30 years
Right.
deployed on active
What's
service.
you done, Brian?
Well, 2 6-month tours in Ireland. Then Telic 2. How long was that? 7 months? 7 months.
That was July. Aye, just short of 7
So
months.
there's a year and a half. And 2 Herrics at 8 months each. A year and a half.
So you're talking 3.5 years.
3.5 to 4 years active service.
I need to correct myself, I've done 3 tours in Afghanistan. So that's an extra 6 months.
So I've done.
Forgot about Toral 10.
The ARBs, so that I've probably done 3 of them.
They're 6 weeks or something.
So there's 3 months, then 6-month tour of Armagh, then a 6-month tour of Belfast, then Telic 2, then Afghanistan 3 times. So I done Herrick 12, and then, well, done 3 months of that, and then came straight to Herrick 13. And then I done a 4-month tour RSOI, and then the residential OMA tour as well.
That was 2 years,
Well,
wasn't
2
it?
years, mate. Aye, so
Two
that'd be
years.
this year about 5.5, 6 years
Aye.
after service.
It's around about the same.
I forgot about the Oma. I wasn't there. Right.
2 years on active service, mate.
For me,
That must have been.
probably just over a year.
But I was
Telic
You done
2.
Telic 2.
Aye.
And Herrick 12.
Right.
Just over
So
a
a
year.
year. Which is a lot for a reservist.
You're a reservist.
Yeah.
So, see, with the reserve service, deploying on active service, how long was the gap in between the 2 tours?
2003 and 2010. So what's it?
So it was a decent gap. I was asking about the gaps because I know that a lot of reservists have done more active service than regulars,
Aye.
just because of the nature of how they could deploy.
Some reservists went straight from one to another deployment straight away without a break, and literally just stayed in theatre.
I've been away to get back.
Aye, same.
I hated it.
6 months is enough.
And I don't like
You
spiders.
know, just to throw some context in here, I think, because there has been talk of doing the sort of year-long deployment
Like the Americans.
rather than the
Americans,
6 months.
Aye.
But when you look at the stats on American military with deploying a year, I don't think that they would ever go to that unless it's
Aye.
all-out war.
The thing
In the
is-
current climate with the campaigns that we deploy on, I think 6 months. I mean, when I went on Toral 10 during COVID, there was no R&R.
Aye.
So you were out there 6
Full
months,
time.
without a break, and you could see the difference in people with that,
And not having a break.
not having a break. Then because they've spoken about it for years. Or we could give up R&R and compensate you with leave afterwards financially, whatever. But although it sounds good at the time, because everybody hates that trip home and then having to say cheerio a second time and going back. But when you see it, the impact that it has on people with no R&R, I think it's proven that it's
Oh, you need it.
thingy.
You definitely. You need to
No.
bear in mind as well is you've got the tour, so 6 months, but you've got, is it MST you called it?
Aye.
You've got the MST train before it, which is the best part of 3 to 5 months as well.
Yep.
That you're away all the time.
Aye.
So
Question here: have you or any of your friends been wounded?
aye,
Yes.
aye. No, well, friends, not people that work under me. Aye, that was Herrick 13. We were quite lucky. We had got shot through the back of the shoulder, and it came out there.
Yeah.
That's right.
We had the interpreter that his legs blew off. Obviously, a couple of close shaves as well with IED on the, what do you call the things?
Or the snaps.
Jackals.
The jackals.
The
aye.
jackal, aye. Had the bad IED strike and that. No acquaintances, but a couple of guys in Telic too.
And he
Aye.
died, didn't he?
Died in an ambush.
Aye.
Shot and killed.
And who was the other lad for Alamara? The stadium?
Aye, it was he
Died.
fell and hit his head in the pavement, didn't he?
Was it not? It was heat exhaustion, was it not?
I don't know.
He died anyway. I know he was
Aye.
part of us. He was attached to us as a reservist.
I heard it was heat exhaustion, but I don't know the ins and outs.
Heat exhaustion, I think that's why he collapsed.
No, I was lucky. I had a guy, and he was just more intelligent than I've ever met anybody in my life.
It was intelligent.
And he had an answer for everything that could go wrong, and he wouldn't send the books out.
During his planning,
Aye.
if you questioned his planning, he had an answer.
Aye, exactly. You couldn't catch him out, put it that way.
Did you have anybody?
So, I've not been wounded myself. I haven't had anybody directly under me be injured, but people that I know, people that I've worked with alongside, been injured. So, first one that springs to mind is Big Empty Heed, who got injured in the build-up to Herrick 13.
Who's that?
Who's Empty Heat?
I don't want the name.
All right, okay.
But on the build-up, when the jackal rolled, took his leg off. Lost his leg. 12 hours he spent underneath that jackal waiting to get recovery out to lift it. And then the young boy that we lost in Tellick, who got shot under the armpit, had only been in the army a matter of
was that
6
RHF
weeks.
obviously?
So that was RHF.
He was just in with it.
As his platoon sergeant was trying to keep him alive, the locals were trying to take his watch and his rings off his hands. Anyway,
Desperation
then the three that we lost in the Mastiff on Herrick 18.
That was the later one,
All B Company.
Aye.
I knew one of them personally. He was a good friend of mine. He was one of my soldiers earlier on in his career, and he lost his life instantly. So that, and then there's been others that's been wounded, but trying to put them on an order and remember who and where is quite difficult. But quite a few people that I know personally I've worked with has either lost their life or been wounded, but nobody that I have fortunately been in command of at the time.
Well, I was only when I was my brother's best pal that got shot, you know.
I forgot about
And that was a sad day. Yeah. That was a sad one.
that. Was horrible. As I say, we were on our education.
Aye.
Mine went in the morning, and it was rumour about who it was.
Aye. Crazy. How long does it take to train to become a soldier?
But a lifetime. You're always learning, but
I think they're on about basics.
So for context, so to become a combat infantryman is 6 months.
Right.
That's the basic training. To go into a combat service support role, or something that's not combat, then it's 12 weeks basic training, and then into the trade training,
which is 3 months for RLC. Because I was doing that Sanders course.
I think they're all slightly different, but I think the sort of general run of the mill is 6 months intense training. But then, as you say, when you leave your basic training, you then go to your unit, and then it's continuous training.
Yeah, it's continuous.
And for the benefit of what we're doing here is every step on that promotional ladder is then another 3-6 months training course to fill that role. But we all know that you can't go on that career course without doing the training that you do day to day.
Well, my basic training going back to 1992 was a year.
Junior leaders.
So that was January the 6th, 92 until December the 17th.
Harrogate, it's a year, isn't it?
It's an academic year, so it's 10 months.
Similar to juniors,
it's 10 months. But it's an interesting, I've never looked at it this way before, that because you're under 18, you get a year's worth of training. If you're over 18, you get 6 months worth of training. And it'd be interesting to understand why that is. Now, I personally think it's under 18, because you can't deploy on active service until you're 18.
They drag it.
I wouldn't say they drag it out, but there's additional stuff in there, because if you go to Harrogate, you're still at school.
You
still do school work. I don't know, was junior leaders the same? Did you do actual in the class?
There was classroom work, but you covered, well, I think that the actual meaning is in the name, so junior leaders are just shaping.
I'll give you one. How much training time for a reservist going through
shocking
training?
Absolutely shocking.
What do you mean too short?
Far too short. As we've been discussing, currently with the RSDs, you know, the days that a reservist is afforded, it could take 4 years for somebody to get through to end of CIC.
Aye.
And at the end of CIC, they're expected within 2 years to go and do a junior NCO's cadre with potentially 60 days training.
Aye. That's why you need to take your hat off to the reserves.
No, exactly.
Because
Respect them.
So my basic training was 5 weekends and then 2 weeks at CIC.
Yep.
And then, but then you.
However,
then you're allowed to deploy.
However, you've deployed on operations and you've proved your worth
Aye.
as a reservist with that little training.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
I mean, at the end of the day, they're teaching them the basics. As long as they know the basics, and then when they go to the unit, then they learn a lot more.
Yeah.
And if they go on deployments, stuff like that, then so be it.
Again, that is basic training.
Yeah.
If you then want to be a machine gunner or a mortarman or an anti-tank, you know, and on a specialist weapon within the infantry, then that's another 3 to 6 months.
just to become a soldier though. We've cracked that part at the times, I think.
Aye.
Were there moments when you genuinely believed you wouldn't make it out alive? How did you cope with that fear? Did this affect your mental health or the way you think? Right. As I've just read that and it's fresh in my head, I can't honestly say that I've ever been in a situation where I have not thought that I would get out alive. I don't know if you all agree with that, but in my mind, the minute that you think that, it's all going to go wrong.
Aye.
And you know, the age-old saying is your training kicks in and you go into automatic pilot. It's true.
Aye.
Yeah, it's very true. I've never.
You know, I remember Barza Palace, we took incoming, we were all congregated in the one area, and it was a case of wait till tomorrow morning before we do, you know, the clearance op, etc., etc. First light, we got up to the op wide awake. I remember me and a few others standing there to clear the tank park for all these Chinese rockets that came in. They knew that we were going to do that, and they hit us with another barrage, and it was comical. Because nobody believed that you weren't going to go there alive. Everything did just kick in, and people were diving under things. I mean, one guy even dived under the POL point, you know, the fuel tanks, right?
That's a good move.
And lit up a fag. And he's like, well, if I'm going down, you know, at least I'm enjoying it.
You're going
But,
down in flames.
you know, at no point did I think, this is it, it's the end.
And I think
Because I the minute that you think that, then it probably is, because you're not going to react.
I think the amount of training that you go through via the likes of Calfix, Op Tag, and what you do in your unit prepares you, and you didn't have the fear because we all knew each other inside out.
Aye.
And I was always confident going out in this action with my guys, you know what I mean, and getting back. Yeah, there was things happening here, there, and everywhere, but never once thought I'm not going to get back to the camp and get back here.
I can honestly say that you know, adrenaline does kick in, and you actually, sounds crazy, but you actually get a bit of excitement because you're like, oh, this is what I joined to do. This is what I've trained for.
I definitely think you know you've lived. Get that feeling. Oh,
Yes.
I mean, our regiment for Telic 2 went up to 760 people for Midland member.
Aye.
Because, believe it or no, our act and that was a recruiting tool. People were joining up because they wanted to go.
Yeah.
And they never had the fear.
They see benefit in it.
Aye.
They see benefit in it. They've said for years, you know, the best recruitment tool is a war.
Aye.
Not that we want a war, but
Possibly, aye.
Did you join to go to war?
No.
No? You just joined the reserves in general?
Just joined the reserves in general. Wanted something completely different to do.
Right.
Just went into a reserve centre, or a reserve centre, what it is now. It's a TA centre back then.
But with that in mind, you didn't need to deploy on any of the 2 operational tours that you went on.
No, so it
But
was,
when you were part of it, you
was
thought, I
islands.
want a bit of that.
And the reason was, you know, all my mates were gone.
Aye.
If all my mates are gone,
I'm
it's
going.
time, yeah, I want to go on.
No, that's
Then I got the big envelope coming from my door.
I joined because my brother was in. You know, I joined the reserves first.
I was the same.
But then I had this chance for the reserves and went straight into the Rhinos.
Aye. Aye.
Was there ever a moment where you wanted to stop being a soldier?
Nah, not for me. Well, nah. When I got out in 2017 after 25 years, I knew it was time to leave. But I had this job. I knew I was coming into this job, which is obviously recruiting for the Army Reserve. So, nah, I didn't want to leave. And I'm happy that I'm doing what I'm doing now. So, no.
I think the fact that the four of us are sitting here,
says it all.
answers that. And exactly the same as you. I left through circumstance, not through want to leave.
Aye.
And as I say to people now, I am glad that I did leave when I did, and I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm more in control of what I get out the army. But I can honestly say that I have never looked back at any part of the 29 years regular service that I did and say, "Oh, I didn't enjoy that."
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. When I was sitting digging trenches on seniors wrecking at 3 o'clock in the morning and it's pissing with rain, then there was probably a few times that I would have just walked in like.
It does see a moment because I was going to say that's a momentary thing. So there probably is moments where you're like, "Oh, I just wish this would stop," but it's been very, very brief moments.
What about you?
Well, I disagree with the fact that when I got to 44 and did 24 years, I had to get out.
Yeah.
Aye.
I was fit as a fiddle, and I mean that. The job I was doing, I could still have cracked on for another 2 or 3 years easily. In the job I had, because I was small arm school corps, remember, it's not as taxing as being a some major an RQ or an LE officer or anything like that. But I believe, no, I shouldn't have got out then. But when I did get out, I tried truck driving. Then they work straight into the Army Reserves. And I was getting my weekends away, I had to get back in. But Bob would get me back in. And then obviously this job came up, I took that, and we're all sitting here now, 30 years down the line.
I must admit, I did think about packing after Iraq.
What, Telic 2?
After Telic 2.
Because that was hard, would you?
But why?
The reason being, we'd been away, put ourselves in that situation, coming back and doing it, sort of practicing it. It took the shine off it a wee bit.
No doing it real.
No doing it.
So, do you think that?
And I think
do you think that's partly because you were a reservist and you were coming back to your normal day-to-day life, coming back to a civvy job, and then doing it part-time again?
Quite possibly, but just as I say, no training for real. You know what I mean? Coming back, blank round.
I mean, because I think it is a common thing across the whole military that you spend 18 months gearing up to deploy on a 6 months operation. You go in that operation, then you come back, you have a bit of respite, a bit of leave, get back to normal, and then you go back to basics again, individual fire manoeuvre, and you're like that. Why am I doing this when I've just been out there, doing all that stuff for real? But, and that's the narrow-mindedness where people think, well, I've just done that for real, but the guy next to you has just came for the depot. And it's you cannot stay at that heightened level for 20 years. You need to have a respite, plus the fact tactics change, weapon systems change, principles change, so you have to start to re-employ them again. But the mindset is, what am I doing this for?
I didn't enjoy the infantry. I know that. I'm doing the seniors twice and failed it. I didn't enjoy it. And then when I went, I was coming back to the depot, there was a full school teaching. I found my niche. I was a great instructor. I'm no blown. You ask Ali.
Well, the thing is, mate, we're all sitting in the positions that we're in because we found our niche. And somebody says, you're good at that, that's your career stream now.
I never said I was going to I'm sacking it because I didn't like seniors, because certain people helped me along by got me a posting as a sergeant, and then from there I went to the small arms school corps. I've never stopped, but if anything, I don't like the infantry.
To answer that question, did you think about leaving?
No.
So especially when you were at seniors and it was that this isn't working for me?
No, I never ever thought about leaving. I just thought I'll go another route. I'll find something else. I could have went NT or something like that, or anything like that, but I would have certainly stayed.
So you're the only one that thought, nah, I've had enough of this.
Probably for a...
That's the reservist thing you mate. Is that voluntary thing again?
The chain of command then says, right, when you go into today, your NCO's cadre.
So
I had a new challenge, went down the NCO's cadre, went into a new role as a Section 2 IC. But right, okay, it's a new challenge. And then, before you know it, juniors, seniors, Afghan, I'm sitting here.
Here's a question, what food do you eat whilst in the active service?
Everything.
Go and answer that, mate. You start.
Where do we go?
On active service.
Rations? Cookousies?
Fresh rations. Well, depends what year, really, doesn't it?
When you're in camp, it was fresh and the chefs were there cooking.
Just some of the food is brilliant.
Afghan, I was eating Italian food. I was eating American food because some of the defects were the size of small villages.
I remember taking the Saxons down from Alamara, no Alamara for Basra, all the way down to get fixed. And the first thing I seen was Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut.
Straight in there, and it was only me and my commander, because I bought every single man in my section a pizza and brought it back cold. And they ate it like it was just straight from Domino's.
What was the stuff like in Alamara? What was it? What was it like? I can't remember.
It was good, Harris.
It was alright, wasn't it?
It was okay.
What was it like doing it?
I just remember the egg banjos
Before
we went
that's
on
right.
patrols and came back from patrols.
Egg banjos, Rations.
For the context of this, a piece of egg.
Army rations, when I first joined, when did you join?
94.
Right, so you'd have had the old
The
tins.
tins. The tins, aye.
Some of them were nice, but some of them were absolutely disgusting. For context, steak pie was called baby's head, wasn't it?
Aye.
Because it was like, you opened it up, it was like a bald head like that, staring at you.
Cheese possessed.
The curry was alright though, if I remember right.
Aye.
Because you got the proper rice and all that.
Aye.
But rations nowadays are just absolutely crazy.
Right, but
Compared to what they were.
Aye.
here's the thing, right? So, I can honestly say that every time I've been deployed on active service, I very rarely ate rations. Do you know what I mean? No, but so
I'm only joking.
in Northern Ireland,
Aye.
it was a cookhouse. So as you
Unless
said,
you're on a two-day patrol.
aye, but you know, it was very few and far between. That's
Aye.
what I mean. It's no your staple diet when you go there.
No.
You're, and again, it's a misconception. Rations are there for when you do not have access to fresh food.
Aye, exactly.
So let's go over it. So my first tour, Bosnia, we had a cookhouse,
Aye.
right? And it was normal, as you would eat in a cafe here, right? Maybe not the same quality, but you know, you had your chips and egg, you had pie, chips and beans, you know, steak pie, all that kind of stuff, chicken. It was the same when I went to Northern Ireland. My first tour in Northern Ireland, when I was in New Barnsley, it was a porter cabin, one chef. It was very basic, but it was fresh cooked food.
Was that a company or was that a multiple?
Company.
Right.
Company. But, you know, you got up in the morning and it was, you know, fry up for breakfast. It was nothing complex. It's not like, you know, your Sunday roast, but it was normal fresh
That's
food.
when it's good though, when it's like the ratio of chefs to amount of soldiers. Do you know what I mean? That's
We were in
exactly.
we were in NTH. Now, if you were going out for a period of time for a day, they would give you tins of soup and stuff to take.
Aye. Remember,
But rations were solely if you were going out off camp for a prolonged period of time and you didn't have access to fresh food.
Remember they upbuild Newton Hamilton and up Fortify as well, Crossmaglen.
Yeah.
You were in all the main feeder routes coming in, you had the big ISO containers and then you were there as a multiple for, I think it was 3 days or something.
3 days.
You used to get fresh brought down to the enemies.
When was that?
Used to CMBs.
Alizair, aye, that's it, aye.
That was one fresh meal a day, wasn't it?
Aye, that was alright though, because you had
That's the time we were on rations.
you had the cooking bit in was it known next to the ops room, that?
Yeah.
Aye, that was
And
alright.
that's the reason you had to have a stick across your arms, mate, in case you fell in the drain because we're not that skinny because we never got enough.
That's what webbing was for.
The webbing stopped you falling down the gut.
There was definitely a noticeable difference
In weight.
of whether you were on an operation that was UK led or
Aye.
multinational led.
Aye.
You know, again, going back to, you know, my most recent deployment on Telic 10, Karga was UK funded and led,
Aye,
compared to NKC, HKIA in actual Kabul,
American.
which was American led. It was the same when I was in Iraq and I used to go down to the Safwan border crossing point.
Aye.
And it was an American cookhouse down there. And the difference, and it was great, it was a novelty. You went down and you were like, oh, look at all this food and all the, you know, the variety that you've got.
Aye.
But after a couple of days, you were like, this is horrendous, because it's all pre-packed, you know, nothing's fresh. Whereas a UK-led cookhouse
Aye.
might not be the best variety, but it's fresh
alright.
produce and it's you know, produced properly.
Aye. Was it difficult for you to readjust to life back home after active service?
Aye, it takes a wee while, doesn't it? Because you're up and down. I mean, your sleep patterns away, your routine's away.
Aye.
You're used to waking up with your mates. You're used to doing something constructive every day, and coming back then to 2 kids and a wife that they want you to deal with that with them. It takes a wee while. You can't just. I would say it takes a good couple of weeks, maybe even longer, to get back into your work-life balance and routine when you get back from a tour. It definitely does. I think everybody would be the same.
Oh, aye, massively, aye. I was actually on about this other day to somebody where I stay, and I said, I think the most I've ever felt it was actually Northern Ireland. I remember coming back for the Belfast tour, 97 or was it?
Aye,
98. Came back for that and walking along Hoyk High Street.
Turning.
It was just weird, like it just felt weird.
20s.
Aye, it was just strange because I don't know. It was weird. It's hard to explain, but it was definitely weird. Like, it does take time to adjust.
I was walking down Darlington, mate, shopping, mate, and turning round
Aye.
to look behind me.
But I think, do you know, I think that going off the subject a wee bit is like every time I go into a restaurant or something like that,
I was going to say that.
I always go for my back
To a wall,
and
so that you can see all the exits.
See all the
Entrances and
exits, and I can gauge everybody that's sitting there. And that's
You can identify a threat before it is a threat.
It's just an army thing, I think.
You know, I was going to bring that up, but the other one, right, and I don't know if everybody else does it, but I find myself, when I come back, I still do it now, that see if I'm sitting on the couch and the wife will say, right, Mon, we're going to go a bit of shopping. I'm like that, looking for my weapon, and I'm looking, you know, all the stuff that you need before you walk out that door.
That's my phone.
I'm terrible at that.
It's my
But
phone.
the other one, and it's not just for us, as you say, it's for the wife and the kids, right? See the amount of times that I've come back and I'll be sitting there, and you know, whether it's the first night back or a couple of nights after I've been back, and well, right, you go to bed, yep, and you get up and you go to lock the door, and the wife's like, whoa. Don't jump into my routine. I've been doing that for the past 6 months. Yeah. I'll make sure that everything's open and the doors are locked. And you feel useless. The only thing that you get today to fit back into normal life is take the bins out or take the dogs out.
Aye, walk the dogs out.
But you know, it's trying to adjust to all that stuff as well, because they've adjusted whilst you've been away.
It's normal daily routine, normal life, but for us, normal daily routine on ops is completely different. It's completely different. Like, what about you?
I know after Telic 2, so our journey back, if you remember, we had about 8 hours between getting back to camp, basically ditching our kit, and then us getting a bus back to Chilwell, because if we were the first ones back, I don't know how you managed to flip that coin and win that.
Well, I was doing me and Tony could in the NCO squad, I mind. That's why we got back.
That's how we got back early.
But what you're saying is what the flash to bang, they're coming back,
and then literally being up the road. You know, you've got you walk out your front door if you're on the pads or whatever, and they've seen all your regular faces. You're going back a couple of days later. Literally, I got off the plane. I was in Chilwell overnight, and then I'm back up the road. And that was me.
See, when you deployed, what was your civvy job at the time?
I was a baker.
So that's where I think I would find it hard. You know, 6 months, whether it's in Afghanistan, Iraq, or Northern Ireland or whatever, and then coming back and a week later you're standing in the counter and Greg's gone. Do you want sauce on your rolling sausage? I think that would be much harder, because as you know, regulars come back, they don't normally go straight on leave. They have a wind down period, a week to 2 weeks, back into normal soldiering routine.
They then brought in that
and then off
decompression,
which
course as well in Cyprus, which helped.
No decompression.
Was
back then.
See, I didn't like the idea of the decompression in Cyprus, because you're finished. I understand the concept here, but
you want to get home.
Mum and kids are sitting there going, "Oh, so you're having 4 days in Cyprus? Barbecues, all that kind of stuff. When does my tour end? And what do I get at the end of it?"
No, it's true.
And when we went through Chilwell, literally it was proper flash to bang. But we got the question, did you see anything that you might think?
Oh, right,
the mental health.
Do you need trim?
Yeah, all that kind of thing. Even though it wasn't trim back then. And guys being guys, not we're cool, not we don't need it. And there was maybe 2 or 3 that says, we think, we've seen this, that, and that thing. So they went away for about 2 hours, and we just went to the bar. And
That was your
probably
decompression.
going to the bar was talking to the mates and all that. That was all there. But in hindsight, I think everybody that goes through that process is going to have some sort of, they've seen something. They've been taking a normal daily routine. They could have probably
The
I
thing
don't
is,
like talking about it.
Aye.
Again, it's with people to ask, oh yeah, I've been in a few tours and all that. And my missus will tell people, she'll look at people and say, no, don't ask them. I don't like talking about it to anybody else other than us. Because they don't get it.
That's a good question. So
What do you think is the most misunderstood aspect of being a soldier by the general public?
That's a hard question. That's a good question.
It's a start question.
what? So read it out again, mate.
What do you think is the most misunderstood aspect of being a soldier by the general public? What do they think of us or misunderstand about us?
Well, probably one of the things is the general public just think that we're trained to kill, which we are, but they just see us as soldier. What's the first thing that comes to mind is soldier, like gun
and war,
kill, war. But
destruction, death.
Exactly, bombs, killing, bullets, blah blah blah. The list goes on.
Drunk, fighting,
drunk,
fighting,
institutionalised,
thick. Never done good at school. That's why they joined the army, but it's completely wrong.
I think that another big misconception is, we've all heard the phrase the fourth emergency service. That we are there to pick up all the crap that nobody else wants to do. And when people go on strike, etc., etc., it's fine. The military will step in.
Yeah, the Green Goddesses in Livingston.
Fire, COVID, testing. But it's true though, isn't it? It is true.
I do think that the public think that everything that you said there, first thing when you mention a soldier is war, destruction, violence, drunk, etc. Especially if you're in a sort of garrison area, people think, drunk soldiers, etc., etc. And no dropping out at school or no doing well at school. But I think generalising, when there's something wrong, whether it's conflict, but whether there's something wrong in the country, we'll just get the military to do it. And in more recent years, the CGS has says to the government, they're not your fallback plan. Don't be hell bent on not doing something because you've got the military to fall back on. Because too many people think that's fine. We'll get them to do it.
I was talking about doing the prison strikes and all that at one stage.
Any public service that goes on strike, mate, they talk about bringing the military in.
The floods in Cumbria and Carlisle, remember? The Lancs and that. But the biggest misconception is obviously the one I said at the start, I would say.
I know that's not by, but it's not the majority of the public like that. That's just I think there's certain. I think around garrison towns are more against you than like what we are.
Well, I mean, I personally have experienced when I lived in Edinburgh. Going out for a night out, they can identify a soldier right away. The doorman can, because the majority of them are ex-squaddies. And the minute that you walk up to a club or one of these trendy bars, or that, no, the night. Because they know that you're a soldier and they just think, if trouble kicks off in here, you might not cause it, but you'll be in the middle of it. I was just going to throw in there, it's not just the public that think on what you thought. How many times has, we went to Kenya, you're not allowed out. How no? Because there'll be trouble. So even within, they think, soldiers got to cause trouble.
Yeah, and they make things dry, don't they? Like, ADs even.
Which generates the trouble, because people are like, what am I, 12?
And it causes people, soldiers. The soldiers, we could get a drink anywhere. I've never.
So now you're saying that we're all drunks?
No, I'm not saying that. You're right what you're saying. It encourages people to say, you know what, I'm going to get an Uber and tell them to put the thing in it. You know what I mean? But
again, it's the old scenario, and we've all experienced it. You tell a soldier that he's not allowed to grow sideburns, what's he going to do? He's going to grow sideburns, right? And that's the simplest analogy.
I mean coming back for
rebellious.
6 month tour of Armagh. It was Crossmaglen actually, and I'm not going to name names, but me and these other two lads scaled the fence, the fence at the back in Dreghorn. Scaled the fence, went down the tune because we were all gated. We weren't allowed to do it because we just got back. Nah, that's not happening. So we went out, ended up putting the piss in Edinburgh, and we were into the kitchen. I think it was called. I don't know if it's called that now. It's a nightclub pub thing. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, we went to the bar. We looked across, and there was two officers who remain unnamed as well. They'd done exactly the same thing. I don't know if they scaled the fence as such, but so we sat with them and thought, right, if we get caught, we're all caught in a winner.
If you're in with the crows, you get shot.
I'll tell you a similar one, right? So when we were in Bosnia in '99 in Gorno-Vakuf, a guy who was in my platoon did that in Bosnia every night for about a month and eventually got caught because when they went on a patrol,
he was sitting
there. They went into a bar and the barman's like, how you doing? And they're like, how's he know you? And that's when it came out. But for about a month, he'd one of the rubber mattresses, over the fence, climbing out and go down into Gorno-Vakuf to the bar every night.
So is that really a misconception then?
Are we really misunderstood? Right, enough on that one.
Right, what kind of daily fitness routine do you have? So back in the day when you're serving, you would do fitness every morning. If it wasn't every morning, you'd do at least once a day anyways. So you do PT on a Monday. You would always do PT on a Monday, physical training, whether it be a tab, a run, or circuit training, whatever. Tuesday was the same. Wednesday has always been renowned in the British Army as a sports afternoon, so you would work in the morning and then you would do your nominated sport in the afternoon. The whole regiment would meet in the sports hall and you'd go away and do your individual things. Now that could be fishing, which I'm into. It could be basketball. It could be
any sport.
Archery. Aye. Any sport.
Dominoes.
Aye. What's that one you do the map reading and what is it called? Orienteering and stuff like that. Thursday fitness, same, and then Friday was SEALs PT in the morning, and then you would finish.
Beat the dog.
Aye. Used to get harangued.
That's all because you
come home from work
to do that.
After a shift.
To do your fitness.
And then go out on a run. But again, physical exercise.
Fitness routine now.
It's good for your own mental health as well.
Aye, definitely.
I think fitness routine now at our ages and our illnesses and our knees and our backs and if it's a lot slower, it's a lot.
Every night.
Well, I still do fitness. I still have to. At least
you have to keep taking
away. You can't run now.
No, I can't run now because of my back. Other stuff like that.
But you know that is one to add to that is that fitness routine that we've all been used to takes its toll. Because there's not one of us can go a run now.
Carrying a lot of weight.
Arthritis in the knees. Can he hear?
But you know, just to add to it is the fact that you need it. Because your job requires it.
One thing I'll say about fitness is, if you're fit, which I always was anyways, obviously there was people fitter than me, but I was quite fit. If you go on a course, being fit,
it makes it so much easier.
99%, it makes that course a lot easier.
As they've always said, they can teach you the stuff for the course on it, they can't teach you to be fit. You need to be fit before you go on it. Because everything that we do
there's no
has fitness involved.
About the military, you have to be fit.
It's personal, and it's personal fitness, isn't it?
It leaves you a lot more time to think about your tactics.
You get what you wanted it.
What are the benefits of being a soldier, and do they outweigh the drawbacks?
Definitely. Benefits of being a soldier. Well, the first thing is, I think the financial benefits is brilliant. The job security, you'll never find anywhere else.
The pension, just everything.
Again, for the financial benefits, you need to serve a career in it. You know, if you do it for a few years, then it doesn't really have any big financial benefit.
I tried buying a house when I was a farmer, right, and in the army reserves, I couldn't get a mortgage finally. In 3 years into the regulars, got mortgage straight away. Bought a house in a half.
And that's down to job security. Not so much the financial circumstances that you're in at the time, as in money that you've got, but it's the fact that you have got a guaranteed income for the next 20 years.
And it allowed me to get in the property market because I couldn't get on it anywhere.
And I think the medical side of it as well.
Aye.
You know, and again, we need it because
Aye.
you know you put your body through some tough times.
Uh-huh.
But the fact that you know, I'm not saying that the medical care is any better, but it's on tap.
Aye.
You're not waiting. Do you know what I mean? So when they finally found out what was wrong with my back when I was doing cataract, the next day I was at a private hospital for that MRI scan to determine that that's what was wrong, to then get the treatment. If that was me in Civvy Street, well, how long did you wait for yours?
I waited 5-6 weeks or something. Aye.
And that's still quite quick.
That's still quite quick. Aye.
But again, the benefits, and I'll talk about the reserve side, is we were doing things that you would never do in City Street.
Aye.
We're throwing ourselves out of helicopters
Aye.
to literally canoeing for America, for Canada to America. You're paying thousands upon thousands if you're going to do that.
Skiing stuff.
Yeah.
You're skiing, you know.
And you get paid. You get paid to
You
do
get
it.
paid for it.
Aye.
You get paid to do it.
Well,
You know, and I think I'll take it to a negative side. So back when I joined, we were doing that regularly, in and out the back of helicopters, getting dropped half on a training area, going in doing what we were trained to do, getting back on the helicopter, getting dropped half again. Now you don't see as much as that.
but that's across the army as a
what
whole.
you-
That's not just the reserves. And you know, if I look, so one of the big benefits that I notice again now, in hindsight, is in the 31 years that I've served, I spent 7 years in Germany. I spent just under 3 years in Cyprus. Right, so there's 10 years, a third of my time overseas.
Aye.
Right. Take that out. The other 20 years is moving from here to there, etc., etc. Having 4 kids, don't know why I'm holding up 5 fingers, but having 4 kids, 3 of my kids married, gone, etc., etc., and they have not had any issues of gone, do you know what, I want to do this for a living, but it's there, I'm gone, and I can settle in there and build a family, a life for myself. Whereas people that grow up and stay in the same place and work in the same place, if something changes in their circumstances and they need to move, they find that massive.
Change.
It's change your routine, innit?
So, you know,
Totally
having lived all over
comfortable.
the UK and overseas, to me is a massive benefit because you know that if you want to achieve something, that you can just go out there and get it.
Yeah. But I think you've had that benefit as well of being able to travel the world.
Benefits are definitely travelling. I just wish that I attained more
Opportunities.
more opportunities.
Aye.
I was, you know what it's like. We were in, when we went to Canada. Now, I'm big into fly fishing, as you know, and we're looking to go to Montana in a couple of years. And Montana basically borders
Aye, Canada.
Canada where we were.
Aye.
And I just wish that instead of thinking, do you know what? We're all
Sin
going, we're all going to the piss for 3 days to
the
Seattle or
Canucks.
whatever. Yes, I wish I'd went fishing for 3 days.
As I say, see the 7 years that I spent in Germany, right? I ventured to Hanover, Hamburg, you know, places
was
like
it?
that. Aye, I never even visited Berlin, mate, in 7 years that I was there. There was a guy in my platoon that at least once a month would hire a car and just go around Europe. And he's like, if I get a day in Italy, I don't care. I can say I've been. So, but again, hindsight's a wonderful thing because all the benefits are there, but you're very narrow focused when you're actually doing it.
And I think the benefits are all sort of job related as well, if you know what I mean.
Aye.
So engineers and all that,
Aye.
they'll have different benefits to an infantry, say,
Aye.
because they'll come out
trades.
with,
Trades.
they'll come out with different
However,
trades.
just to
Education
balance
as well.
to balance the seesaw, the downside, right, is see now living in Civvy Street. I try and get involved in a lot of things in Civvy Street, right? And whereas all my mates are doing the same as me, you go to the pub and you're talking to somebody. If they've got a drama with the roof, they know a roofer. If they've got a drama with a car, they know a mechanic. We don't have any of that. So we are very niche, and you know, my missus used to snap at me all the time because when you'd go for a night out, everything was all work related. And as I kept saying to her, I was like, but if you're in Civvy Street, your next door neighbour might be a binman, down the road might be an optician, you know, there's a variety there that people can talk about different things. We've got one thing to talk about, what we're doing right now. Do you know what I mean? our topics of conversation become
Limited.
very narrow and limited.
But the benefits definitely outweigh the drawbacks.
And there is lots of them. There is lots of benefits.
Right, last question. It's quite a deep one, I would say. Do you think war is ever justified? If so, why? Who wants to go first?
Well, I believe, I believe that war is justifiable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just looking at what's going on just now, if you are fed limited information, then you could see why people don't think it's justified.
Aye.
But when people carry out an act of violence against you,
Aye.
you've got the right to self-defence.
Mm-hmm.
So the initial act of violence might not be justified, but the self-defence part is justified.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you then take that too far, then whoever had the initial act of violence that wasn't justified, then they become justified. So I think war can be justified. Not every war is justifiable.
Mm-hmm. Well,
You know, if I think to when we went on Telic, right, to Iraq, right, without getting into the politics of illegal war, or whether it was illegal, whether it wasn't, and why we went there, we went because that's our job. Our job is to defend the UK government, the UK population, and all our interests overseas as it's all laid down in policy. We don't get to question that.
Mm-hmm.
So we go and do it. So as far as I'm concerned, we were justified doing what we did.
Yeah.
And that's just talking about Iraq. You can relate that to Northern Ireland, you can relate it to Afghanistan, you can relate it to Bosnia. Again, Bosnia was slightly different because we went in there in a peacekeeping role initially and then a peace enforcement role. But if you look at Bosnia, was the conflict between the Bosnian Serbs, the Muslims, and the Croats, was that justified? Don't know, and I'll never know because I don't understand what it was all about. But our part in that, I think, was justified. Yes, war is justifiable,
mm-hmm.
but not every conflict can be justified.
Right. So if somebody says, I agree with what you said there, if somebody says, I don't think war is justified, then I would say to them, well, is World War II justified? Do you know
But you'll get people that say it wasn't.
But in my eyes, that's my opinion, and I would probably presume that there's points on both sides of it. And
what if the outcome was different in any of the wars?
Aye, like it was with Telic.
Yes.
They never found the weapons of mass destruction.
We were out there for 7 months and got nothing.
Exactly.
You know.
But do you know what? And I know that, again, you can go to the politics side of it and all that kind of stuff. That's not. It's one of the ones you can argue that that's just that they never found them.
Aye.
Right?
Aye.
Now, we don't know. We don't know, and you need to go into a lot deeper stuff there, right? See, at the end of the day, Saddam Hussein was a tyrant who was murdering his own people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The weapons of mass destruction was the trigger for us to go in, right? If we didn't go in, he was still at war with his own people, which was unjustified. So you could say, take the weapons of mass destruction claim away, the fact that we went in there and removed that dictator, tyrant, whatever you want to do it, in the eyes of international law, you could say that was justified.
Yes.
But again, is it up to the soldier to justify?
Nah.
No.
It's up to the politicians to justify because we're literally acting on.
That's what.
their behalf.
But then again, the politicians are in there voted by the public. So if the public don't just,
I think if anything, what's happened over the last 60, 70 years, 80 years in fact, is the fact that, well, I hope the fact is that they actually sit down and they all need to come to an agreement, right, is this going to be justified, us going in here? As in, you see what I mean? Like the government sitting there.
Cobra meetings and that.
Well, that's what I mean, but what I'm saying is, like, after Telic 2, after Afghanistan, I hope that politicians now sit and look at that and think, right, is this really justifiable sending troops in there? And they have to, categorically, every one of them agree to say, right, let's send them in.
I think if you look at Russia and Ukraine at the minute, right?
Aye.
So I think it's perfectly justified, and again, this is my opinion. I think Ukraine is perfectly justified in what they're doing just now because that is self-defence. I don't think Russia's invasion of the Crimea was justified, irrespective of how they dress up. But again, that's just based on opinion, right? Because we don't know all the facts. But NATO has not intervened with physical force because they can't justify it. Well, it's justification because Ukraine's not a NATO country, so they're not part of the NATO pact where you attack one, you attack them all. Whereas if they had to step across the border into Poland or any one of Estonia or anything like that, then NATO would be justified under an international agreement to go to war with Russia. So again, that's justifying it. If you then look at morally, it depends on your makeup. You know, you can justify it all you want, politically, legally, etc., etc. But some people's morals just don't see war as justifiable.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Whether it's self-defence, provocation, or whatever. So, in my opinion, to answer that question, yes, war is justifiable.
Yes.
And that's why I'm here.
Unfortunately,
to carry that out.
It's just one of the things that has happened and always will happen. Aye.
Unfortunately.
Is that a wrap?
That's a wrap. 3, 2, 1.